Well, hello, Miss Ethel Gardner, and I'm so glad to be with you today. I'm Jay McDaniel, and I'm chair of the board of the Cobb Institute for Community and Practice, based in Claremont, but with a deep interest in Pomona. And we look to the city of Pomona as a place where good things are happening. Mm-hmm. And they're happening in part through leaders like you. And I've been reading about you. I know a little bit of your story, but I want everybody to hear it. So I'm going to ask you to tell it again. I know how many awards you've won. You've had a documentary of your life. I've watched you being interviewed by well-known journalists in your area, probably elsewhere as well. Mm-hmm. I'm aware of your 3 books. I'm aware of the Kennedy Austin Foundation and the good work it does. And I want other people to know about that who don't yet know. So if you wouldn't mind telling a little bit about your story, and then I'll ask questions in the interim and we'll have a conversation.
Okay. So first of all, I am so eternally grateful to be here, so humbled by this. And I was excited when Dick Bunce called me to tell me about you. And I said, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. My name is Ethel Gardner. I'm the founder of the Kennedy Austin Foundation right here in the city of Pomona, and we service the Tri-City, Pomona, Claremont, and Laverne. I have deep roots in the city of Pomona. I love Pomona. There's a lot going on here, and I think that it is a true blessing to be in Pomona, to be able to enhance and to equip and educate our community in how to heal after loss and devastation. So that's how I got my start there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your life before Pomona? How you got to Pomona?
So I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I had 10 siblings. My mother and father were very decent people. We grew up very poor in a very poor community, and 7 girls and 3 boys. My father was a very hardworking man, a man of integrity, but he wasn't a man that showed a lot of love and affection. His love language was to work and keep a roof over our heads and to show us how to be honest people of integrity and things like that. My mother, on the other hand, was more or less distant. I didn't find out until way later. My mom had 10 children at the age of 35. And so I can't imagine what she went through, but when I was growing up, my mom and my dad had issues with alcohol. They were both alcoholics. And on the weekends, you would see 2 people that were so quiet, but on the weekends, they would come alive, and the fighting and the arguing and the drinking and it was chaotic for children to watch 2 people that they love go at each other with that great intensity. And so all my life, I was a very shy, very fearful young girl. I had fear of everything. And I was in a position because I was the second oldest in the line of my siblings. And one day, in the heart of winter in Cleveland, my mom decided to leave the family. So she walked out in the midst of a cold winter day and never came back. And the burden of abandonment and rejection of her daughters was just instilled. Not only did we have fear, but now we had issues of abandonment. And that is something that I'll never forget. How I winded up being in Pomona because of all the scars inside of my soul, all the scars inside of my heart. I was looking for love. I needed validation. I needed love. And I knew my dad loved us. But because there was no emotional love, I was looking for that part as a young girl. And I found it in a young guy. But this guy was just as abused and just as damaged as I was. So I'm looking for a hero and he's looking for one too. So damaged goods got together and the domestic violence and things like that happened in this relationship, which drew me to leave Cleveland and come to California. And that's how I got here. When I got here, I was so devastated, traumatized. And I didn't know what to do with the broken pieces of my life. So I had to almost empower myself to get my GED, go back to school, find out who I was. And so that's how I winded up being in Pomona. I was just a very, very young mother with 3 small children, no identity, full of fear and anxiety and depression and devastation and disparities, and just really looking to find validation in life. And Pomona was where I was led. And so that's how I winded up there.
Mm-hmm. I know that religious faith is very important to you. I know that from your books.
Mm-hmm.
Was that always important, or did that grow over time, or has that changed? How about the woman in Pomona? Where was religion for her at that point?
To be totally honest and transparent, I was angry at God. I didn't think that there was a God. I mean, how could a God allow all of this to happen to innocent children? We didn't ask to come here. We didn't ask to be born. And so I didn't really have a religious belief. My father was a missionary, but he wasn't the kind of missionary that was on boots on the ground missionary. He believed, but he also believed keeping your family together, keeping a roof over their head, kind of talking about religion, but not practicing was what I learned. So when I got to a point that I was on my own, I adopted that same thing that he did. I know God is real, but I'm so angry. I want no parts of him, because if he is a loving God, then apparently he don't love me. So that's how that whole thing played itself out for a while.
Mm-hmm. And things changed in Pomona. And could you tell us a little bit about that and how the Kennedy Austin Foundation got started, the circumstances of that?
Absolutely. When I got to a point in life that I was in a position to allow myself to forgive myself first. And I wanted to be a better person. And I knew I had the capabilities and the possibilities to do it. And I also knew that God was real, but I didn't trust him. And I didn't understand why all these things happened to a girl that I guess I didn't think I brought all this stuff on myself. So one day I was at my house and I said, looking up to heaven, if you're real, I just want a relationship with you. Can we start over? I want to talk to you. There's so many things that I need clarity. I need answers. I need you in my life. And that's the day that I knelt down on the floor and I gave my heart to Christ. And my life just changed. I found a little church in Pomona and I started going to that church, and I took my kids over there and we all walked down the altar and we all gave our life to Christ. And that was the beginning of the relationship that I had. And it was a wonderful relationship with Christ. If it wasn't for him, I would not be here. I would not be alive. At first, I thought that he didn't like me. And then I found out his love for me was overwhelming, and I'm here because of it. And the Kennedy Austin Foundation started because as a young mother, protecting her children at all costs, trying to protect them from the elements of the world and some of the people in the world and some of the things that I experienced, I lost a son, a single mom. I made a vow to protect my children, and now my son is gone and I feel devastated. But I had a relationship with God. I had a relationship with Christ. I had somebody and something to lean into when I had nothing else. And I remember when I got that phone call. And the first thing that I did after I hung up that phone, I got back on my knees. And this is what I heard. Isaiah 61, 1-3. For the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news. And that is where the Kennedy Austin Foundation started. That is the foundation to this day. Isaiah 61, 1-3, to heal the brokenhearted. That's exactly what the Kennedy Austin is. And that's exactly where I got it, straight from the throne of God.
Tell us a little bit about that phone call so that everyone listening will understand.
It's every parent's nightmare. And I tell people all the time, don't be so quick to judge people when they don't respond the way you want them to respond. My son's 16th birthday was May 1st. We was giving him a really nice party. And everything in my life seemed to be going very good. We were in church. We got a beautiful house. Everything. I got my GED. I was working in nursing. I love nursing. And it seemed like my life was taking on a beautiful, beautiful turn. And my son's birthday, May 1st, we were having a barbecue outside and we were just all talking. He says, Mom, I want to tell you something. I go, okay. He said, you know, all of the kids at Bonita High School is going on a football weekend football journey over at Lake Havasu. And he was a football player at Bonita High School. He said, I just want to ask you if I can go. And I go, no, you can't go. And he says, come on, Mom, you got to trust me. I said, it's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust people with my kid, okay? He said, oh, come on, Mom. I said, okay, let's do this. You pray and I'll pray. And let's ask God. He said, okay, bet. That was May 1st, his birthday. Around the 15th or 16th of May, he says, Mom, did you get an answer? I go, yeah. I said, you know, I think it's going to be okay. I want you to grow up. So I got him the answer, yes. So he started preparing for the trip. They got there, him and a couple of his friends, all these guys were Bonita High School football players. They got there and he called me. He says, Mom, I'm so thankful that you trust me. He said, this place is beautiful. I'm so glad I went with my friends. I said, okay. I said, but I really want you guys to be very careful. And, you know, when you come home, just be mindful and look around. And he said, okay. That was on May 16th. Several days after that, I didn't hear from him. And there was a lady on my street that was moving. And my son wanted a waterbed for his birthday. And she says, Miss Ethel, guess what? I got a waterbed and I want to give it to you for Damon. I'm moving. I go, perfect. So we're moving the waterbed in my son's room. And I said, as soon as he get here, I'm going to surprise him with this waterbed. And all of a sudden, something came over my whole soul. And it said, he'll never see it. And I started rebuking the devil. I was like, oh no, devil, that is absolutely not going to happen. The very moment I said that, the phone rings and it's my son. He says, Mom, we're going to take off early because it's really, really hot out here in Lake Havasu. We're going to take off. I said, okay, just be careful. 23 hours after I spoke to my son, I got that phone call that the boys had been in a single car rollover. My son was a passenger in the front seat and he was not wearing a seatbelt and he was ejected out of the car. And I remember when I got that phone call, I sat there and I said, God, please don't take him away from me. Please have mercy on me. And I remember hanging up the phone, going to talk to my daughters. He was my only son. And I said, Damon has been in a car accident, guys. And I said, we need to, they had airlifted him from Lake Havasu to Las Vegas. That was the closest trauma center. My son had suffered an injury. He hit his head and he was brain dead. And so I said to myself, how did he wind up in Las Vegas? They said, that's the nearest trauma center. So we had to go to Vegas. In the meantime, I had this thing in my soul where I was hoping against all hope, but I knew in my soul that my son was gone. We had a conversation on the phone that day, and he said to me, thank you for trusting me. He said, you're my favorite girl, and one day, Mom, you're going to see all the people that you love and I love in one place. And I go, what does that mean? He goes, you'll see. And that was it. And that is the day that my son left this earth and left this hole in my heart and in my soul. And I made a vow and a decision that day when I heard the Lord say to me, Isaiah 61, 1-3. I made a decision that day that I would not die, but live and take the broken pieces of my heart and help other people that had gone through this kind of devastation. Because there were people out there that I knew that had been through it, and some didn't get through and some did. But I wanted to reach the ones who could hear my voice and see my face to know with God, all things are possible. And that's how the Kennedy Austin Foundation got started.
And in the beginning, as I recall, it had another name, Mothers. It had, what was the first name you gave it?
In the beginning, I had started journaling because my heart was so broken. And there came a time, Jay, that I couldn't speak. The only thing I could do was write. So I was writing, and I wrote A Mother's Cry. That's the name of my very first book, A Mother's Cry. Can Good Come from a Broken Heart? That was the name of the group, A Mother's Cry. It was only when I saw my second daughter, Natasha, give birth to her daughter, Kennedy, that I changed the name to the Kennedy Austin Foundation. And that's where it is right now.
And since that time, you have helped so many people that have suffered from really many kinds of trauma. Can you explain to us or say a word about how your own mission expanded in vision after the death of your son?
I can honestly say, I used to always say to myself and to my Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ is like, to me, he's like the frugal gourmet. He takes every single solitary thing that we have gone through in life, like tapestry, and it's interwoven, and he could use it all. And every single solitary thing I have been through in my life, domestic violence, anger management, parenting, the loss of a son, every single solitary thing I had personally been through, I applied it, and that became the Kennedy Austin Foundation. Because we needed to be healed from the inside out. We just could not just get a grief and loss, because before I dealt with grief and loss, Jay, I had to deal with anger. I had to deal with resentment. I had to deal with shame. I had to deal with all of these elements. Mental health is real. And sometimes if we put the cart before the horse, we got to go back and repeat the cycles. So every single thing that I have been through in my life, I applied it. And that is exactly what Kennedy Austin Foundation is to this day.
I'm going to say a little word about process theology. We in the process world understand God as a loving presence, a loving reality, and a spirit of creative transformation in the world. And that's the phrase we use. Creative transformation. And just like you say, the transformation occurs by weaving the strands of our lives and our experience into whatever vital whole is possible that then can become a springboard for service to the world.
Right.
And as I know from your writing, self-affirmation too.
Mhm.
We must love ourselves if we love our neighbors.
Absolutely.
And that's been a theme of your work.
Mhm.
The kinds of, can you say a word about the kinds of traumas that have become important to you over these years? And some of the work that the Kennedy Austin Foundation has done, give us a sense of that, if you will.
The kind of traumas that have become very vital to me is the kind of trauma that is silent. We don't talk about it, Jay. We bury our trauma. We bury mental illness. We bury anxiety. We bury grief. We bury disparities. And the main key is the silence. It's like you can see the manifestation of it in body language, in these addictions, habitual behaviors. And like I tell people all the time, you see a lot of these children, they take trauma and disparity to the streets when actually they learned the behavior at home. So for me, it's like the silent killer of grief, depression, anxiety, loneliness, loss. All of these things play a major role in your body being physically sick, your mind being emotionally sick. So those are the kind of things that I focused in. I hone in on things. When I see certain things, it's almost familiar, because just like you were saying earlier, sometimes we have this thing in our soul that we don't like ourselves at all. We have this self-hatred and almost loathe ourselves, and we feel like we have to keep punishing ourselves. And those are the things and the people that we need to get a hold of. Because if you don't shine the light, if there's not a reflection into that, they will never know. Because people have been told your behavior is horrible, and we bought into lies. So if it's like, okay, so it's my behavior and it's horrible, it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. What we have to do is see beyond the behavior, see beyond the grief, see beyond the loss, see beyond disparities, and start addressing those issues. Listen, people want to be healed. People want to be set free. They just don't know how. They need a mirror to say, if you can do it, so can I.
One of the themes in your writing is the theme of possibility.
Mhm.
And so, people can find themselves in situations where they sense no possibility for becoming anyone different. And do you think God is present in their lives through fresh possibilities for growth? What do you think? How is God? I put it this way. How do you think God is present in their lives?
It's not I don't think it's a question of how. He's very present. He's a very present help in time of need.
Mm.
I know that people need community to bring out that entity in them. You see, people have been born and raised with sayings. This is who you're going to be all your life.
Mm-hmm,
So we adopt that. You're never going to be anything. You'll never amount to anything. You have no voice. You are not important. So we adopt those things. So you need community people, community leaders. You need God to show people you are more than a conqueror. You are more than what people have said to you. But before we can get to that, we have to get to the root and root out all the words that have been adopted. And once we can get to that, then we can get to the healing of the soul of the people. And God is a very present help in time of need.
One of your practices over the years, I think, has been journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And can you say just a word about the role that writing and journaling has played in your life? And do you find that other people can benefit also from that? Or are there other practices that you would also recommend for people who want to become who they can become, who
Absolutely.
listen to the call to healing and want to respond?
Absolutely. You know, journaling, I'm alive because of God and journaling. I could write when I couldn't talk. I could write when I couldn't speak. There were times in my life that I didn't even want to get up, but I picked up that pen, and sometimes I just wrote a jot or a tittle, and it made me feel like I was still alive. I was still on this side of the earth. Journaling had become for me the healing mechanism to say things or to write things I could not even say. I couldn't put a word on the pain, but I could write it out. And I would write one word, and maybe 2 or 3 days later, I would come back and fill in what that word meant to me. Journaling kept me alive. And that is one of the reasons why we added a class for journaling called Right the Wrongs.
Oh, really?
Why? Because everybody want to tell your story their way. We get to tell our story our way in the first person. And it starts with journaling. There was a lady in our class that her mother called her by some name. She never even knew what her real name was until she started journaling. Her mother called her by initials. She had to go to her grandmother and say, what do these initials mean? When she started journaling her real name, it opened her up like a book. And that personality and character came through. And this lady became one of the main volunteers, and she's still there to this day, because journaling opened her up and gave her her identity. And with that, she became a whole person and not just 2 initials. So journaling was big for us, and it is to this day. We have writers. We have people that come in just to sit in the class, just to sit silently. Sometimes they don't get involved with anything. They just want to be present. But journaling is very, very powerful. I tell my granddaughters all the time, the Bible talks about the pen of a ready writer. Sometimes you can write what you can't even possibly speak out of your mouth. The emotions is all over the place, but just write it down and then come back and revisit it and then fill it in. That's what journaling have done for us.
Do you think of it as a kind of prayer? Would journaling be a form of prayer? Would that language come naturally to you, or no, they're kind of 2 different things? How would you put it?
I honestly think they go hand in hand. Journaling is absolutely a prayer, because sometimes, again, we could write what we can possibly say. And even if we only knew Psalms 23, you could write it out. And you could pray it out. When you don't know anything else in the Bible, you can identify with Psalms 23. I think that journaling and prayer goes hand in hand. And I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that when they write and when they journal and when they go back to revisit what they write, then they can have a sense of empowerment. They can go to the Bible and look and write a scripture and find out, oh, Joshua, let me look this up and see what that means. So it's a sense of empowerment to journal and to write. It goes hand in hand.
This may sound like a funny question, but it's related. It's about the role of popular culture in the imagination and heart of youth, but actually so many people, myself included. And so do you think that you've mentioned drawing from the Bible, turning to the Bible, living from biblical passages as best we can? How do you assess the role of popular culture here? The lyrics to songs, the sounds of music, the rhythms of music. Do they also play an empowering role or a destructive role, or where would you situate all that?
I think it all depends on the culture in which you come from. There are things out there now that are very damaging in culture, very, very damaging in a lot of cultures. There are things out there that's being preached over the pulpit that are very damaging. There are also things that are preached over the pulpit that are very enlightening and healing. I think that when we get ourselves to a point, Jay, that we can adopt being healed ourselves, that we can differentiate what's good, what's bad, what's for me, what's not for me, then we can make a conscious decision to say,
I see.
That's not for me, but that is. So that's how I would sum that up. There's a lot of things out there that are good, but there's a lot of things out there that are not so good. But when we get healed, we get a chance to make that difference. We get a chance to make that choice, and then we can apply the good and leave all the other stuff out there.
I forget the century, actually, a Catholic, Ignatius of Loyola, and he was one of the pioneers of thinking about discernment, how to discern the voices within us. And here's what he said. He said, there's three kinds of voices inside us. There's the voice of the Spirit of God, and there's the voice of the devil. And the devil he defined as the enemy of our better self. I said three. I think I only came up with two there.
Okay, yeah.
But what you say reminds me of the role of discernment in a person's life. How to distinguish, how to name the different voices, the different callings, and respond as best we can to the voice of God in our lives. And maybe journaling is a way that can facilitate that discernment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Journaling is so powerful. You know, in our journaling class, we have music. We play real soft music. We have candles lit. We have a beautiful aromatic things going on in the atmosphere to kind of create an atmosphere of peace. Journaling gives people a sense of, I could breathe in this space. I could breathe in this space. So if I hear the voice of God, if I hear the voice of the devil, then at least in this space, I'm hearing, because outside of this space, everything is muffled. I can't hear it all. And so to have the spirit of discernment, to have that, it takes people to get healed on the inside, be it journaling or writing or going on walks and breathing. It all depends on the person's motivation to get healed from the inside out. And once we get healed, we will know and we can discern whether it's God's voice. He said, my voice is a still small voice, that loud sometimes outside. That's the one we have to check out. But when you get healed enough, then you can start discerning what is his and what is not.
It's so interesting to me, and maybe to others too, how you link spirituality and social transformation. Want to say a word about that? Some people separate those two. I don't think you do at all. Any thoughts on that?
Give me a little bit more clarity.
Okay, I will. So some people, when they think of building a healthy community,
Mhm.
they think about being engaged in the world in constructive ways and maybe talking about public policy and things you can do and how things can be structured and searching for kind of equity at that level and
Mhm.
sustainability.
Sure,
And they think spirituality is kind of a little more individualistic and searching the heart, but not necessarily outward looking.
sure.
I sense that for you, those two things go together. That's what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. For me, those two things go together. I, it's all to me, it's according to your call, the
Mm.
call that you have on your life. You can have a call that you deal with the political in that political arena. You can also have a call that you deal in the spiritual arena and talk more about God and the call of God and the things like that. So I think it's an individual, it's an individual call for people. I think when you get in your place where you have been called to whatever that thing is, and when you open up your mouth to speak, that's what will come out. That will lead you and down the journey that you're supposed to be on. For me, it's both.
Yeah, yeah.
It's both. And it has worked for me because that's who I am on the inside. And I really, really like the fact that we could talk about spirituality and we could also talk about the other components of life because it's all interwoven and it all goes together. We're all one human race, and what's good for you is good for you, and what's good for another person is good for another person. But at least let's walk in our God-given calling. And when you stand in that stead and operate there, everybody get what they need.
Are there any writers or authors that have really influenced you in addition to the Bible? And can you name some, if there are? The reason I ask, I'm thinking about Howard Thurman. I don't know if you know Thurman's work, but he so integrates the spiritual and the social. And I was just wondering, how about you? Who have been some of your written mentors, poets, writers, whatever?
Jay, I'm going to be totally honest. I have not one. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a mother,
Yes.
older sister, a grandmother, an aunt, a community leader. I literally got on this journey from the broken, fragmented pieces of my heart. The only thing that I had, Jay, was a promise from God. That's all I had. That's all I knew. And for me, that was more important than anything else because I knew once I got on the journey, the mentors would come. The people would come, but get on the journey. And that's exactly where I started. When I started writing A Mother's Cry, I had no idea it was going to be a book until I let a girlfriend read the manuscript with all of the misspelled words and all of the grammar. It was jumbled everywhere. She said, Ethel, you have to get this published. There are people that can identify. And I said to her, I'm not a writer. I've never gone to school. I'm not an educated woman. It doesn't matter. You're a called woman. Do it. And so that's exactly what I did. I have sought out mentors. I have sought out people now that I'm in this space. And honestly, there's not a lot of people that I can honestly say that have been in my life that I can call mentors or call on when I need. I get on my face, I call on the Lord, and I got my daughters and my granddaughters, and we are a community, and we help each other. We pray for each other. We talk things through. We cry things out. And that is how I have been able to navigate through this life and through the books and through this foundation.
I'd say when you talk about your daughters and your family, you're talking about mentors too.
Yes.
They've mentored you and you've mentored them.
Absolutely.
And you probably do it all the time.
All the time. All the
And
time.
I think
Absolutely right.
Jesus Christ is your mentor also.
Yes, he's
in
my
a
mentor.
in a deep,
Absolutely.
deep, deep way.
Yes, that's exactly it. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. I
Mm-hmm,
would
mm-hmm.
not be present. And not only that, I tell people all the time, it's okay to be present. It's okay to show up, but let's show up healed. Let's show up with purpose. Let's show up with destiny. Let's show up with value and honesty and integrity. Let's be that kind of people because he's a healer. He is our healer. And he just doesn't want us to show up to say, okay, I showed up. Let's engage. Let's engage each other.
Ethel, what's the theme of pausing? In your most recent book, as I recall, you developed the theme of pause. Can you say a word about that?
Yes, I can't wait to tell you. And I even brought a copy of the book here too.
Okay,
Got a
good,
copy of it
good.
right there. The power of pause came as a result of me starting this foundation, boots on the ground, working hard every day, every day, every day. No money. I was homeless. I had nothing, but I knew that I was called to this foundation. Jay, the foundation became me. The foundation gave me my identity. The foundation gave me my value, my worth. And one day, I was sitting at my house in Chino Hills. I moved out there. The guy told me he was selling the house and I had to move. I had no place to go. I said, I can't believe I'm here again. I called a friend. I said, I got to come back to Pomona area because I have no place else to go. And I remember weeping from my soul. I said, there's billboards with my name on it. The Crown of Courage is out. The Ethel Gardner legacy story. And now I got to start all over again. I was devastated. And my friend said, come. And I went and I sat on the floor one day crying out. I said, Lord, what is this? Am I born to lose and never to win? And I got my pen and I started to write. And the first word that came in my spirit was, you're writing because I put you on pause for the cause. You can't go any further until you get instructions on the new level that I'm taking you on. So it's not the world, it's me. Have a seat. The power of pause came as a result of, with all you're getting, get an understanding. You're in a new place now. You have to get instructions. That means you have to pause for the cause. That's where the power of pause came, right there.
A little more process theology. Things change. Process means process.
Yes, yeah.
And we're not fixed. We're not static. Our lives are changing.
That's right.
But you point out that we need somewhere in our lives and our hearts to pause, to hear the change that's calling us.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
calling us.
That's it. That's it. I was at a meeting this weekend. We had a book signing at Barnes and Noble last weekend. And I had an opportunity to talk to the people that came to buy a book. And I said to them, do you guys understand, with every single solitary thing that we do in life, it comes with instructions. Our lives comes with instructions from our Heavenly Father. Sometimes we're so busy, we miss opportunities because we have no instructions. You're running on empty. And I said to the people, sometimes you have to pause, back up, take a seat. It doesn't mean that, that you're going backwards. It means in order to launch forward, you have to have instructions. Pause. And that's exactly where this book came from.
There can be new instructions.
Very true.
They build upon the old ones, but they're actually new.
Absolutely.
But we do have to pause to hear the new instructions.
Vitally important to life, vitally important to every essence of our DNA, of who we are. Everybody has to take a pause in marriage, in life, in love. Everybody has to take a pause. And it's sad when we decide we don't want to. Jay, you have to get instructions for your next level. Pause.
I think sometimes circumstances force us to pause. We don't know that we need to pause, but we really have no choice.
Absolutely.
And so that's something to think about. I wanted you to give a mentor speech at the end of our talk, but the truth of the matter is everything you've said has been mentoring. Everything you've said has been a gift and a message. And I hope to get this visit out into the general public through the Cobb Institute,
Absolutely.
But do you have a final word you would like to say? Did you anticipate as you were preparing for this or thinking about this, the one thing you'd like to say that you haven't said? Is there anything?
The one thing that I would like to say that I have not said is don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain. Don't waste fear. Don't waste your life. Don't make life so difficult until every single solitary day you wake up and look at life in reverse. Move life forward. Don't waste your pain. Let it become a motivating force for you to get on the path. Open up your spirit, open up your senses, open up your giftings, and become a beacon light to the world. You never know who's out there that need to hear exactly what you feel is not vitally important. Don't waste your pain. That is my word in this whole segment of what we have talked about. I could have been dead. I could have died. I could have literally, and people told me that I was going to. They spoke death over me because they said, you'll never make it without your son. You've been through too much. We would understand if you gave it up. But what they didn't understand, I had a call of God on the inside of my life, and I made a decision. No more looking at life in reverse. I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward, pushing forward, because guess what? Every single thing that I have been through in life was a motivator for me to keep it moving. Don't waste your pain. Keep moving forward.
Well, something tells me that your son and a whole lot of people in that heavenly arena are hearing this too. And they're saying, thank you. He's saying, thank you, Mom.
Yep.
Thank you. Once again, thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ethel Gardner. And I've really enjoyed this. I'm sure everybody that sees it will. So many blessings to you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay. This was wonderful. I truly enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Have a wonderful day. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Okay. Bye-bye.